I would drive by this church often, and many things impressed me about this place. Its beauty, for one, its old graveyard, and the fact that little dancers, children, were exercising in the parking lot. How generous of the church, I thought. So, I went in and learned more about this place of worship. I am so very glad that I did, because I met some fascinating people while I was there.
In this church. I think I was probably the only one of my age at that time growing up in the church. My grandfather and grandmother were members of this church, and they raised their family. My dad was a member of this church, and all of his brothers and sisters at that time. And then it's, some moved away, but the ones that remained here were still members of the church. And we were Brahmins, B-R-A-N-A-N. And I guess I'm the only one that's a member of the church now. Probably, the church, the Methodist church started at what is called Old Concord. That was where Stockbridge actually started.
At Old Concord?
At Concord, yes. It's over on Stagecoach Road.
Mm-hmm.
And there is still a cemetery there. The church, of course, is, fallen down, ruins. But they actually moved that church to this site.
They literally moved the church?
Yes. I've got all of that documentation that I am preparing a history of this Methodist church. And what I find in the records are that this church, as it was established, was the Methodist Episcopal Church.
Methodist Episcopal?
Yes, and I didn't realize that the Methodist and the Episcopal were together at that point in time, and it was in about 1820.
1820?
Uh-huh.
It was called a Methodist Episcopal. Why do you suppose it did that? A matter of convenience?
No, it was just when the church, when it broke out from England, it was Methodist Episcopal.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, I didn't either. I've done some research. And it was. And then it appears when they physically moved the building to this site now, it just became the Methodist Church.
Wow. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
This was back in 1820 then?
Yes, that's when Concord.
And when was the move then from Old Concord to
I think,
Stockbridge?
My memory serves me right, Stockbridge, it was named after a professor, and Stockbridge actually started, it's in I think it was 1826. I would have to go back and verify that.
Wow. And what was it like back in, say, the 40s? The 1940s, 1950s?
Well, Stockbridge was growing, and it was still a very small town. Really, I don't think this area started growing really booming until about the 70s. My mother was very active in everything. Yeah, it didn't matter what was going on in the community. The three churches combined, every fifth Sunday night, back during that period of time, the three churches had service. The Baptist, Presbyterian, and... So
all three churches would combine?
Mm-hmm. Fifth Sunday night service.
For Sunday night services, no kidding. So it was not just the Methodist.
This was a small town, and everybody knew everybody.
What was that like to be a small town where everybody, you said all the three churches...
It was great.
All three churches would combine to have Sunday supper sort of thing.
Sunday supper, sometimes just Sunday meeting.
What the three churches were there? They were the Methodist, right?
The Methodist, the Presbyterian, and the Baptist.
The Methodist, the Presbyterian, and the Baptist church would combine to have. And that was like in a small community where everybody knew everybody else.
Everybody knew everybody.
Yeah, very.
We had sunrise service. All three churches had sunrise services back then.
Wow. So this was really the hub of the community then.
It was. Your churches were the hub of your community. Like, you know, it used to be many, many years ago, and the church was basically established for, would be the nucleus of social activities.
The church.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And we knew everybody.
Wow, that's amazing. So, all right, so this was the community. Really, in essence, this was the community. If you want to know about a community, you had to be a part of the church, or at least associated with
one of the churches, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the only, really, the way I see it, the only way you could really get to know the community was to be a part of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So that's what it was in the 40s and 50s, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So what was it like back in the 60s? And that was a year of change, wasn't it?
Everything started
changing.
changing.
Decade of change?
Yeah, everything started changing, but I don't know that Stockbridge changed that much.
Really?
Because, you know, there was a minister at one of the churches that decided they did not want to join in the fifth Sunday night service, and so they backed out. Two churches continued for a short period of time, and then it was just kind of dissolved. Knowing the other churches, and I don't know them that well now, I would say that this church is head and shoulders in youth activity. No, Stockbridge Schools integrated in the 60s. Let's see, my oldest daughter was one of the first groups. And we had a school over Smith Barnes. And that's where they took the 5th and 6th grade, I believe. And we didn't have any problem integrating. I grew up with, as my father said, people of color. Everybody says black people now. But I grew up with them. There was a lady that kept me. Her daughter, a couple years older than me, came with her, like in the summertime, and we're still friends. We're still best friends.
Wow.
And from what I understand about my grandfather, my first cousin said that he helped everybody. And he had a big farm, he had a store, and he helped everybody. And I don't know if you know this, but Martin Luther King's family is from Henry County.
Excuse me?
Martin Luther King's family is from Henry County.
Really?
My father and Martin's daddy played together, the sisters and my aunts. Back over here in the area behind the post office was farmland, and that's where they were.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
There is a documentary on the county written by Gene Morris. And it's a very good outlay of the county, and it goes back to where the old territorial things. But we never had any problem in this area, and we still don't. We were not this separated, ever.
Right.
Because I can remember Daddy went over to Uncle Johnny's, and that last name was Turner. And everywhere my father went, I went, because I'm an only child, and I was like a boy. I went with Daddy to Uncle Johnny's, and on every Saturday I went to Aunt Ruby's, and she fixed me breakfast. I mean, it's just, it was a natural thing.
Natural thing, yeah, absolutely. So, and then there comes the 70s, and you say that was the growth of...
It started growing here, and because I was working, I had 3 kids, I didn't get involved in a lot of things, because, you have your own that's going on. There's a lot of history in this Methodist church that people don't realize. Because I've heard this all my life. My mother was a Mosley.
I'm sorry?
Her last name was Mosley.
Moses?
Mosley, Mosley.
Okay.
And she was into the history. She loved history.
Oh.
And I've heard this all my life. And her family, there's the Mosley Cemetery out on 155, where you've got some very old graves out there too.
Wow. Nancy Huffman, huh? Wow. I really appreciate this.
Well, you're certainly welcome.